Hello, everybody. Welcome back today to the channel. Today, I'm here with Mr. Andrew Mellen. He has been given the title by many different outlets of the most organized man in America. He has just written a new book, which is Calling BS on Busy. And he also has a previous book on Stuff Your Life. And I'm very happy he's joining me here today. Mr. Mellen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Thanks for
So,
having
you have this new book coming out, right?
me.
Calling Bullshit on Busy. Can you just let people know, like, yep, right there. What's what's like the basic idea of the book?
The basic idea is that time management doesn't really exist, and that the only thing we have control over is our relationship to time. So time does exactly what time does. Time ticks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're in the developed world, we're on a 24-hour cycle. It's
Yeah.
what's happening. If you live off the grid and you get up with the sun and you go to sleep with the sun and you follow the seasons, you could have a different relationship to the clock. But for those of us in a world where we have some technology and some development, we have a clock that is ticking every moment. So this idea that you are going to manage time is a faulty construct because you can't manage time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very methodical. What you have complete control over is yourself and your relationship to the clock. So that's what I talk
Yes.
about in the book.
Yeah. So you'd sent me a copy, and ironically, I also been really busy. I'm reading the book though. I'm in the process right now. You've broken this into 11 chapters, sorry, with an introduction, and you talk about the different ways, the mindset, the tools, like how people the different things that people use and try to do to like overcompensate and try to like, in a way kind of force themselves to like try to see how they can get more time or time manage in a way that's not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean, oh,
yeah,
go,
no,
please.
no, oh you, oh you.
So, yeah, we spend a lot of time and energy in our heads trying to do funny math, trying to make something happen with time. Again, instead of instead of thinking of hacking ourselves in relationship to how long it takes to do something, how much time we want to budget for something, we it's an outward focus. It's focused again on the clock, on the math, and trying to make 24 hours in 24, 25 hours in 24,
Yeah.
or trying to get 75 minutes into a 60-minute hour instead of thinking, how can I be as efficient and streamlined in that hour to get the things that matter to me done as quickly and as frictionless as possible? That you have control over. When the timer goes off and 60 minutes have elapsed, that's done. So you either got everything done, you didn't get it done, you
Mm-hmm.
got more done than you anticipated. And all of that is where there's an opportunity to adjust and improve. Conversely, if you want downtime, time for yourself that is not about tasking, it would be great if you could enjoy that without feeling like back here something is something's waiting for you and that
Uh-huh.
you're on borrowed time or you're stealing time from the future so that you can enjoy yourself, just knowing that you're creating time debt for yourself later in the day or later in the week.
Mm-hmm. So I'd mentioned a little earlier. So you have this title of most organized man in America. How did that come about?
Oh, the media just gave me that name on some media. I think it was CBS Sunday Morning when I was
Mhm.
on their show. I think they called me the most organized man in America.
It's not a bad title to have.
No, 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 I'll take it.
So, why did you decide to start writing? I can see behind you you have your other book, Unstuff Your Life. Uh, what what made you want to write that book?
Well, my work began what we would consider to be my second career
Hmm.
as a professional organizer. Began after 20 years of working in the theater and the nonprofit arts world. So I ran several theaters. I ran a multidisciplinary art center in Washington, D.C. And when I started doing organizing work, it was a direct service provider. I would go into people's homes and offices and help them get organized. And after doing that for, when did I start doing that? In 1996. And the book came out in 2010. I wrote it in 2008. So I think after doing the work for over a decade, I started to recognize patterns, and I wanted to codify those and capture those. At the time, I was one person. I mean, I'm still one person, but at the time, I was a business of one person. So it was clear that I couldn't go everywhere and do everything and support all of the people that were coming to me looking for help. That the way to get my methodology codified and into the hands of other people was to put it into a book, and get it out into the world, so that if geographically you were someplace where I wouldn't be able to work with you, or if you didn't have a budget to hire a professional organizer, you could still follow the method and get, I wouldn't say it's the exact same result as hiring me, but you'll get an approximate result, and you will certainly achieve organization. And so that was the genesis of the book, was really, I can't be all places at all time to all people, but my technology, my intellectual property and my methodology can be everywhere if I write a book. So that was the beginning.
What was the process like of, that was your first book, right?
Yes.
What was the process like of getting it published and that? Because every author I've talked to has a very different story of how their process went about of getting it published.
So it began it actually began with an article that I wrote for Oprah magazine. And when I first had lunch with the executive editorial team at Oprah, I reached out to a friend's agent. She had already written several books, and she introduced me to her agent. I said, I'm having a conversation with Oprah about possibly writing an article or writing a column. It's Oprah. I don't know how to negotiate with them. Can you help? And he said, well, come in, let's have a talk. Let's have a conversation. So I went and met with, who's now my agent, Jim Levine. I met with Jim, and he said, so what's the big picture? And I said, well, I'd like a TV show, like a radio call-in show, and I'd like a book. He said, well, let's do the book first. And so we put together a proposal. We took it out to the market. We had a little mini auction. 3 publishers bid on it. We met with all of them. I liked my editor at Penguin. I really liked her, Lucia Watson, and I felt like we had a good connection. I felt like she got me. She got the book. They offered me a healthy advance, and we decided to go with Penguin. And then we just went with then it was just the business of making the book, right? I mean, because I hadn't written the book. I had written an outline, but I hadn't actually written the manuscript. I was clear that I didn't want to write the book until I had the advance, and I had an opportunity to actually use the advance to fund the writing of the book, that I wouldn't have to take time off of work or try to juggle work and writing the book at the same time. So I had a house in the country at the time in rural Pennsylvania. So I would leave the city, New York. I'd go out there for a month at a time. I would just write, and then tell all my clients I'll be back in a month, sit there and write. And I didn't finish the book in one sitting, but I would get a lot done. Then I'd go back in the city, work for 2 or 3 more months, come back out, work for a month, go back in, couple months. And altogether, it took me about 5 months to write the book.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no.
It's pretty good. Were you nervous at all, like when the book was coming out, about sales, this or that, or were you not really too worried about that?
I mean, I wouldn't say worried is where I went. I had
Maybe
never written a
nervous.
book before. No, no,
Uh-huh.
I understand nervous, anxious, worried. I mean, they're all cousins of something, but none of them. That's not. I didn't have big expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't think it wouldn't sell, but I didn't also know how well it would sell.
Mm-hmm.
There is a statistic that says 90% of all the books that are published sell less than 5,000 copies. Unstuff Your Life to date has sold over 120,000 copies.
It's huge.
So yeah, maybe that might actually even be 95% of all books published sell less than
Mm-hmm.
5,000 copies. So I didn't come into it thinking it'll be a New York Times bestseller. I mean, certainly I think everybody wants to write a New York
Of
Times
course.
bestseller, but I didn't know how that would happen. And so I didn't have inflated expectations. I just will
Mm.
see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when it didn't make the New York Times bestseller list, but it made the Wall Street Journal
Yeah.
bestseller list, and that too was a surprise. I don't know what happened that we crossed a threshold and we made it onto that list, but that was pretty exciting. And I didn't even know it until I was on Amazon on the back end in my author portal, scrolling through things, and it said, "Oh, awards or something, or not notifications, but achievements or something," and it was Wall Street Journal bestsellers list. I'm like, "Oh, look at that! I've written a Wall Street Journal best-selling
Mhm.
book."
And right now, your new book I saw on Amazon too is right now #1 release under business and health.
Yeah, we're in 3 different categories. It was a #1 new release. It was email management. It was occupational psychology, or organizational psychology,
Mm-hmm.
uh, running meetings, and then there was another one that was just, I think, business administration. So it might
Yeah.
be up to 4 categories now.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that like a lot of people that are buying this book, do you think that you've tapped into like, do you think that there's multiple people who like read the first book and are coming back, or do you think that you've kind of tapped into like a broader audience with this book?
Well, I think there's will definitely be overlap of
Mm-hmm.
the audience for Unstuff Your Life will also be interested in calling bullshit I'm busy. And I think it's also, if you think about Unstuff Your Life is stuff focused.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a end consumer home organizing book, although it's also useful for people who have offices.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Calling bullshit I'm busy will help anybody with time management. I wrote it primarily for professionals.
Yeah.
So I think that it should introduce me and my work to a broader and more diversified professional audience.
Yeah.
And the people who have clutter or used to have clutter, who now want to improve their relationship with time, will also be drawn to the book.
When did you start writing your new book?
I started writing it 2 years ago,
2 years
but
ago.
I wrote it in very small blocks of time. During the pandemic, I mean, when the pandemic first started, most of my speaking engagements went away.
Yeah.
Businesses were shuttered. Nobody knew what they were going to do. There were no conferences. Nobody was meeting in person. So all of that dried up. And what we found was that because everybody was at home with all their stuff, addressing the Unstuff Your Life audience was
Mm-hmm.
really where we were going to put all of our focus. And so we launched a program called the De-Stress Your Mess Challenge, which was a 5-day live challenge. I mean, we're still doing it. We're going to do another one in August. They've been tremendously successful. We've had over 50,000 people sign up for those so far since we started them. And because of that, I was busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had limited time to dedicate to the writing of the book. So I would write in small bursts and then put it on a shelf and go back to running my business.
Uh-huh.
So it took longer in some ways than Unstuff Your Life did, only because there were more demands on my time, and making the time to move the book forward took I had to find the time. When I was a sole proprietor of a business,
Mm-hmm.
it was easier to pause the work, isolate myself, and then come back. I didn't really have the opportunity to sequester myself for a month at a time to write CBOB. That's what we call calling bullshit. I'm busy. To write CBOB, I didn't have the time to do that. I had to manage it, as I describe in the book, as a project that I was running while I was also running my business.
Mm-hmm. So you said earlier when writing on Stuff Your Life, you're a professional organizer. Is that what you're still doing, or like have you you keep mentioning your business? Have you like expanded it? What are you currently doing right
Well,
now?
sure. I mean, I have a few private clients that I will go into their homes or offices and help them. I do a fair amount of corporate training. So I'm the New York Mets are clients of mine.
Oh,
The Metropolitan Museum of Art. I've done work for Goldman Sachs, American Express, Bank of America, Nationwide Insurance. I've spoken at many conferences. Dwell on Design, International Confederation of Coaches. I mean, I've Mom 2.0 or Dad 2.0. So I've been speaking and doing corporate training in addition to hands-on organizing. I
uh-huh.
don't do a lot of that anymore. It's just, again, when we think about scale, there's
Yeah.
one of me, and my business model has never been to train other people to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I have been the service provider. So the way of scaling my business has been one to many rather than one to one, because the only option there is I can just charge more money for my time, right?
Yeah.
So
Versus bigger clients.
right.
So
Well, yeah, I mean, bigger in the sense of more people in the
yeah.
room at one time, right?
Mm-hmm. Um, are you still then currently, are you located in New York then right now?
No, currently in this exact moment, I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Are you doing more work down there? Because like you said, a lot of your clients were out in New York, like the corporate clients.
Sure. I mean, COVID. So
Yeah,
I'm in Florida now.
that's fair.
It's where I am now. I don't know whether this is where I'll stay forever. I mean, it's my next home. I don't consider it. I lived in New York permanently for 26 years, right? I mean, that was now that I'm in Florida, this is where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Will I go back to the city? I'm sure I will go back to the city. Will I spend more time in California? I have clients in the Bay Area. I have clients in Los Angeles. I have clients in Orange County and down in San Diego. I mean, I have clients all over the world. But when we think about the United States, I'm typically on the coasts. I
Mm-hmm.
have family in Detroit. So I go where the work is, and where my work is portable. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a lot to, whether I'm teaching online or I'm speaking at a conference or I'm working
Yeah,
with somebody in their
you
home
don't
or
need to bring
office.
a lot of heavy baggage with you.
No, I don't. I'm pretty portable. And so Florida's where I'm camping now.
It's a fun place to camp. It's a nice
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's 85 degrees outside and sunny.
That's right. That's where I hope I end up living is Florida. I
Nice.
love that state. But
Yeah.
you were in New York for a while. You travel with your work. What would you say is your favorite place to go out to work? It could be worldwide as well.
Yeah. I don't do favorites well. I love London. I love Paris.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent time in Indonesia and the Philippines, Singapore, uh, lots of places in the States, Washington, D.C., New York, Boston. I'm in Florida, Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago,
All over the place.
Houston, all the major places in California. I lived in, I've done work in Seattle. I every place is Costa Rica. Every place that I've been, I enjoy. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I bring my happiness with me.
Uh-huh.
And every place that I go, there's something interesting about the place. And because I'm not marrying it, because I'm visiting it, you get the best experience, because you get to enjoy all of the things that make it special without some of the things that locals would complain about, right? I mean, in New York, we complain about we complain about traffic. We
Yeah.
complain about the trains not always running on time. Those things, when you're a tourist, are not the things that traffic isn't your problem, because you're not on the same schedule that somebody who lives there and is trying to commute to work is dealing with. So as a digital nomad, I get to experience the best parts of every place I go without a lot of the friction or the drag that would be there if I was actually trying to live there permanently.
Yeah. Some of the places you just said too. I was actually just in London last week with my family, and I thought that too. London to me felt like it just felt like a much more cultural and historically rich New York in a way. But like another thing too, I was like amazed at the traffic. I was like, I have no idea how people are able to get to work every day. And
Well,
most people,
they drive on the wrong side of the street.
I know, and half the people are like outside the city making an hour commute to work every day and back. I'm like, wow. And like Costa Rica too. I was just there and I was like, wow, like it's just so different everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But the work is still stays familiar.
Exactly. Yeah. No, London's a great city, and a little cold and drizzly to live there
Yeah, for
always,
sure.
right? Like, I mean, I'm 7 minutes from the beach where I live right now, and so that's a hard thing to give up. Even, comparing this to New York, the two places that I've lived most recently, I love Manhattan and the Hudson River, Coney Island, or the Gulf of Mexico. There are things that I love about being in New York, and right now I do like being able to go walk into the ocean whenever I want.
Yeah. For Bob, did you have to do much research for this book, or would you say that this was all just kind of an accumulation of all the knowledge and stuff that you've learned from working and being in this field for the last?
Yeah, no, I think it's a marriage of research that I did around neuroscience and how the brain functions, particularly around things like multitasking, which many people erroneously consider to be their superpower.
Yeah.
And what we know from science is that as soon as you attempt to multitask, you decrease your productivity by up to 40%. You immediately experience at least a 10-point, if not greater, decrease in your IQ. Many people think their IQ is a static number, but I mean, there's a range, right? And so you think, oh, I can do two things at once, but the reality is you can't successfully do two things at once. And as soon as you attempt it, you do two things poorly and nothing well. So, but having I anecdotally knew that from my work. I wanted the neuroscience data to back that up. So I did a fair amount of research around those kinds of claims, so that I had statistics and research to back up what I either intuitively understood from doing the work or anecdotally experienced from case studies and working with clients in the field. And so between all of those things is where the material for the book came from. So you'll find stories of clients that I've worked with. You'll find my own best practices developed over, a 27 plus year career of looking for efficiencies and trying to remove friction, and neuroscience that supports determining what our best practices might be for ourselves. Given that if what you're trying to do is achieve greater productivity and greater efficiency, looking for where the friction and the drag is, where are the bumps in the road, what can be eliminated to make things clearer and smoother. Uh, Grounding those choices in neuroscience and some form of biohacking seems to make the most sense
Mm-hmm.
if you want to do it quickly and efficiently, and not doing a trial and I mean, the benefit of any book, hopefully of my book in particular, but of any book, is somebody else has done the research for you. Now
Yeah.
you can take the result of the research and apply it, so you get to go faster.
Mm-hmm. What would you say that you are most, whether it can be this book or Unstuff Your Life, what would you say that you are most proud of that you have done with your writing? Whether it could be something specific in the books or just overall the books in general.
I mean, I don't tend to think of it as pride. And again, I'm not picking on the word choice, but
Mm-hmm.
I, the thing that satisfies me the most, that is in alignment with my values and gives meaning to my existence,
Mm-hmm.
is being of service to others. And so in that in as much as I've had the opportunity and also the talent, skill, ability to synthesize information, make it understandable and actionable for other people, support them in their own personal journeys, their growth, their development. Um, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing that I am most proud of, or most satisfied with, that my time is well used in being part of a solution rather than part of a problem in the world.
Just a couple more questions. Is there
Sure.
something that maybe you're working towards or something that you really, really would just like to accomplish before it's all said and done with your career, before you just relax out in Florida? Is there something that you really want to accomplish that you maybe are working towards or haven't gotten to?
Well, there is that TV show, right? I
Uh-huh.
mean, I really do. I mean, I want a bigger audience, because I know that a lot of people are suffering. A lot of people live in the story. I mean, there's a lot of systemic challenges, issues in the world and the structure of the world today.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that I don't think that is a problem or a set of problems that I am going to solve in this lifetime. Right? I've thought of running for office at various times and thought, maybe that's a way to do service on a big scale. But particularly in the United States, I find that politics are pretty lowest common denominator these days, which
Yeah.
isn't to say that everybody who's involved in politics isn't aspiring to something greater and being of service. But the structure of politics these days just feels very much like pulling things down and breaking them apart, not really building them up and innovating to make them better. It's
Mm-hmm.
really it's pretty polarized and dysfunctional. So
Little
for
divisive
me,
at times.
yeah, for me as an efficiency expert, entering that world just feels like a way of wasting a lot of time, because I'm not going to change the system until the system has enough desire to change itself.
Mm-hmm.
So setting politics aside, right? I mean, reaching as many people who have a desire to improve the quality of their life, the quality of their relationships, their understanding of themselves, their experience on the planet, being able to reach them, engage in some sort of a meaningful dialogue with them about their current choices, what I've learned that might be useful to them to, again, speed up their internal synthesis of information and making different choices that might align with their values and yield superior results for them. I really want to do as much of that as I can while I'm here. And
Mm-hmm.
so a bigger platforms is really for me the goal, um, so that I could talk to stadiums full of people,
Uh-huh.
instead of conference rooms full of people.
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm comfortable talking to people.
Hmm.
I was a professional actor for 20 years before I did this work. So
Hmm.
even though I'm very introverted in my personal life, I am well designed to talk publicly. So talking to 50,000 people doesn't freak me out.
Yeah.
And the ability to reach 50,000 people or 100,000 people at one time delights me.
Hmm.
That feels like something that I would like the opportunity to do. And so, by extension, a television program, whether that's on YouTube or, whether it's streaming online or it's on a cable network or a traditional television network, the platform is less concerning to me more than the eyeballs. I want the
Yeah.
opportunity to interact with many, many more people sooner.
Hmm. I mean, hopefully that's something that you can be able to get. Have you had conversations with anybody, like any groups or entities about that? Or
Oh, I mean, yeah, I've had probably 4 or 5 TV shows in development, so far in my career, and just nothing's ever taken off. So I mean,
uh
it's not like I haven't
process?
talked to people, but it's television, not unlike politics. Uh, I mean, particularly even cable television and or traditional television has a particular agenda around how it produces content,
Oh, for sure.
and the big reveal of this was a mess and now it's pretty is often how they view personal transformation
Mhm.
stories, right?
100%.
And so um, that's not actually how life happens.
Yeah.
Life doesn't often happen with one big reveal. The aha has a ripple effect and
Uh,
it's cumulative. And so finding a producer or a production company that understands what that kind of an impact is really it's challenging. I mean, so if you think about it, right, like Brene Brown's specials on Netflix or
mhm.
HBO, that's more of what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
because it's not really a show where we need to do 13 episodes or 26 episodes. It's really, here's a series of ideas for you to chew on them. And then in a
Mhm.
year, we can talk about other ideas that we need to chew on. I don't need to be on television every week,
Yeah.
because that again starts to become like a churny kind of thing. I'm not
That
opposed
becomes a
to it
third
if,
job too.
right, right.
Yeah.
Although they often look to the talent to like solve this problem for us.
Uh-huh. For sure. Like you can't solve someone's life in a 30-minute little cable slot unless of
Yeah.
course they end up winning some amount of money. You can't change someone's life with, like it takes, you can give them what they need to, but then like it's always up to people to implement the ideas
Yes.
on their own.
Yes, exactly.
So, with just one last question for you, I ask every single author which comes onto the channel is, what advice would you give for anyone who is wanting to be an author, wants to write a book? Just any advice you would give to someone?
Uh, right.
Hmm.
Staying in your head is not going to get anything on the page.
Yeah.
So it's not like anything else, whether you want to train in the gym or you want to lose weight or you want to write a book or you want to, you know, go to graduate school, you want to become a doctor, whatever it is that you want to do, the way that you get there is by the doing. So do it.
Hmm.
Don't get out of your head and get into action. Be clear about uh, both why you're writing the book, to whom you're writing the book, who do you want to read the book,
Hmm.
and the best way to communicate that. Like, is a traditional publishing house the best way to go? Is a hybrid publisher the best way to go? Is self-publishing the best way to go? Do you want to serialize it and deliver it by the chapter, creating content and supporting people. I mean, look, if you're writing a fiction book and you're hoping to both entertain and inspire people, or you're writing more of a nonfiction how-to book like I've written, or finding the way to get the content into the audience's hand is part of the process.
Yeah.
What's going to support their journey, their consumption of the information in a way that's going to be meaningful for them.
There you have it. That's the best. And for anybody who's watching, that's the best advice you can get from someone who's now written 2 books. He's got to do it. You got to believe.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Mr. Mellen. This has been really amazing. All talking about all this different stuff. Thank you for coming on. And everybody watching, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.